Welcome back. We're still talking about the cases of Lassa fever. We'll still go on to another health matter here, but let's go back to that question I asked about. Okay, you were talking about home to hospital to containment, but let's come back to home to environment to farm, back to the home, and then hospital to containment. So let's go from there.
All right. Now, the epidemiology and the movement is this. That's how you get in contact with it. In the rural environment where the farms are, like we're in the planting season, we've just finished harvesting. We're in the harvesting season, getting to planting season. So people want to go and plant now. So they leave their comfort of home into their farmstead, and then they start planting. So what does that mean? The multi-mammary rat come into the farmstead home, and if they don't keep their food sealed, packed properly, rat-proofing it, then the rats contaminate it. That's for the agrarian environment. 2, in processing the food, you want to make gari, the way we do it, it's not the way we should be doing it again. When they finish making the gari, I'm giving an example. They put it on the road, on mats, so it will dry. What happens? The rat comes, you never see, if you see the pee, or the wee, or the feces, it's black, small, you say, but you never smell the wee. So that's where the problem is. So we should not do that again. If we need to dry gari, maybe we should just change the food processing such that the drying will be done mechanically where rats will not contaminate. That is one. When you now come to the urban environment, because now no more food on the farm, the rats will look for food. It will not go hungry. So generation will keep moving closer to urban environment looking for food. Where does that take us? Our waste management practices. So we leave leftover food, or we leave on food uncovered. When we bag it, we leave it close to the food, they contaminate. They keep moving closer to the source of food we will now eat. So now we have to take proper waste management procedures such that we leave our food rat proof, our food storage rat proof, then our waste properly bagged and covered, where rats will not climb in and climb out. And then we are almost there. That is for primary prevention.
Now let me go to Dr. Ekwaye. We look at, he's talked about the need for us to ensure that our food is well covered, and we also talk about personal hygiene. So tell us about this.
Well, thank you. If you look at most of what is said, beyond the need to keep the rats away from our homes, because of course once your environment is dirty, which is a continuum between personal and environmental hygiene. Once your environment is dirty, this is a traditional attraction to the rats. 1, 2 is that if you look at the way you keep your food items, it's just natural. Forget about Lassa. I mean, we are so fond of leaving food items on the table, in the kitchen, unkept, because you just assume that you can always go back and pick them. It is within your abode. I think we must develop personal consciousness to a point where we know that every food item we leave uncovered has a possibility of contamination. Okay, and we're just talking about Lassa here. It could be any other thing. So the issue of personal hygiene goes beyond Lassa. It could be issue around cholera. It could be around any other disease that can even kill faster than Lassa. But I think what we also need to note is that we operate in a community where you have what we call social support, and when we see people who are sick, traditionally in our African culture, we want to help. So personal hygiene should also include the fact that when somebody has vomited, either our son or children, we need to make sure that we wear, things in our hand, gloves, because here traditionally we don't even keep gloves at home. Okay, so if the small child has defecated, the mother wants to pack it. These are traditional nature, but in these days of disease transmission, especially zoonotic diseases, we actually need to go beyond our traditional practices and maintain a higher level of personal hygiene. And most importantly, is that we also need to communicate this. In our days, we study physics, we study civics, we study, health education. So this needs to be introduced into the curriculum of our kids as they start life, and so they begin to understand the need to maintain personal hygiene. These days, where you even take people's food you use, we are always, something as simple thing like regular washing of our hands. Okay, many people, you prepare food, you don't wash your hand, you serve everybody. You handle, external things. Maybe you come to my house, I've just looked at your iPad, then I touch. The traditional thing is that we must begin to orientate people, particularly kids going to school now, to begin to imbibe this, traditional concept of personal hygiene. Ditto for health workers. Universal precaution goes beyond Lassa. And I keep telling health workers, the way we are taught in medical school, nursing school, is such that we're supposed to have, as part of our first instinct, universal precaution. Because we're discussing Lassa, it could be Ebola, it could be HIV/AIDS, it could be hepatitis, it could be anything that is transmissible. So, and anytime we get to a point where we're talking about transmission of Lassa, particularly among the health workers, the first question to ask is that if we maintain the basic principle of care that we were taught, are we going to get to the kind of level we get to? So it's about a whole lot of orientation of all categories of persons.
Okay, let's go to Abuja. The figures given out on Monday by the NCDC shows that Ogun had 2 confirmed cases and 2 deaths, Taraba 6 and 1 death, Nasarawa 2 confirmed cases and no death, Edo 1 confirmed case, no death, Ondo 1, no death, Rivers 1, no death, and Plateau 6, 3 deaths. That's 19 cases and 6 deaths. Is that still the latest figures?
No, we have a few more cases this week, so we're at a cumulative of 26 cases at the moment. We have 1 more state affected, Ebonyi State, and then we have a trickle of other cases across a few other states in Nigeria. I mean, the one thing to say really is, at the beginning of the Honorable Minister's tenure, when I started in August, there's no doubt that he called me and said, listen, Lassa is really top on my priority, and we've got to control this disease because it leads to a lot of mortality and people are very anxious about it. So we faced it through 3 approaches. We developed new national interim guidelines because we understood that many healthcare workers they knew a bit but not enough on the details of what to do. So we prepared these guidelines and distributed it across the country. It's on our website to be downloaded by anyone at any time who needs it. The second big problem, we found that we kept a lot of the response commodities in Abuja. And, it's a big and diverse country. So the second thing we did in November last year was distribute PPE, ribavirin, and all the other medicines needed for the emergency response to every state capital in Nigeria. So we went around every state capital from Benin, KB to Yenagoa, from Taraba to Sokoto, and ensured that every state had at least emergency supplies to begin the response. Ultimately, the responsibility of the state government to keep enough supplies, but we had to respond to outbreaks, but we made sure that they had at least enough to respond initially. And thirdly, a question came up by one of the colleagues in the studio. Our diagnostic capacity in Nigeria at the moment is very low. We have only 2 labs that are fully able to diagnose Lassa, and you can't really treat Lassa without making diagnosis. So the Honorable Minister of Health included this in his rapid response initiative, and we are at the moment in the process of supporting 6 other labs in Nigeria to have the capacity to diagnose Lassa and ultimately grow that network so that it should never take more than a day or 2 to make that diagnosis so we can manage treatment. So we're on top of the situation. We have fewer cases than we had last year. We have had fewer deaths so far than we've had last year. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control is building its capacity to support the states. We have teams at the moment in 2 states, in Taraba and Nasarawa states, supporting those states in the response. The Honorable Commissioner Ipaye would also recognize that the NCDC supported Ogun State during the response in Ogun. So really, we are very cognizant of our responsibility to support the states in promoting our health security in Nigeria and making sure that our health professionals have the confidence to deal with Lassa. Listen, the Lassa is a tough disease, but we can manage this. So the key thing is for all of us to work together. I love the messaging coming out of the studio around RDT, malaria, because very often in the past we've separated these issues. You know, we have to understand the management of malaria to be able to diagnose and manage Lassa. These are not separate issues, they're similar.
Okay.
And for us to understand the one, we have to understand the other.
Okay.
So I think it's a new era in Nigeria.
In
both the commissioners of health in the states, the NCDC, are working together to forge a national response to the challenges to our health.
Okay, one of the responses that I think we should look at is the issue of these diagnostic centers. I remember this time last year we were still talking about these same 2 centers. This year we are still talking about planning to have other, network of diagnostic labs. How long does it take, for instance, to establish one? What does it take?
So, okay, so I've been in post for 6 months, so I can't really hold forth to the conversations that were had last year, but I can say for sure, we're not talking about it. The funds have been released. Now, getting a lab ready for Lassa diagnosis is not as simple as buying equipment and buying reagents. It takes a little bit more because the diagnosis is complex. Laboratorians have to be trained in the safety methods around the diagnosis and how to prepare their entire lab environment to be able to do this. So it's not as simple as procuring equipment and deploying. However, I'll put my head on the line here and say, listen, we have the funds now. The funds, we're now hoping to get them. The funds have been given to us. It came a bit later than we hoped for. It's top on the minister's priority list. So we are developing and supporting these labs. And I hope to be in your studio very soon to tell you about the progress. But definitely, we recognize that 2 labs, one in Lagos and one in Irua in Edo State, cannot support this for our country. We are the heart of it. We have to support samples getting from Sokoto, from Maiduguri, from Taraba, Nasarawa, to Lagos and Irua. And nothing keeps me awake more at night than thinking about how do we get samples from across Nigeria to these labs. And without doing that, we can't make the diagnosis. So this is at the heart of NCDC's priority this year. And over the next couple of months, I hope to be in the studio again to let Nigerians know on the progress we've made towards this.